All right, so in this video, we are going to make Sarah say some dialogue that's going to be randomly generated. So we're going to replace her default dialogue with a new dialogue script, and then we're going to write a new script for the dialogue. Now, the first thing that we'll need to do is make sure when you click on her that you set her entity ID to a name. So we'll just leave it, I just made it Sarah. And then we want to add a property and just make a property called voice and keep it as a string and then just save it. Now the next thing we'll need to do is make a script, and we'll just do Sarah talks. And then we'll get rid of this display message, expand the window, hit edit. Now we're ready to start writing our code. Now, the first thing we will need to do is make a variable. So we want to do the money sign, and then we need to give it a name. So this is going to be the first part of her dialogue. So we'll do Sarah talk 1, and we're going to say that's equal to whatever's after this quotation marks. So we'll have her say, "How are you doing?" Quotation marks, and then make sure you end the code with that line of code with a semicolon. All right, so that's our first line of dialogue that she can say. So now we're going to write the second one. So we'll do Sarah talk 2 equals how are you enjoying RPG in a box? Okay, and then we'll write the third line of code, which will be Sarah talk 3, and we'll call this one have you seen Justin? Okay. Now we're not gonna do any kind of replies. We're just gonna have her just say a different message each time. All right, so that's the dialogue that she could say. So what we have to do now is put it into an array. And the first thing we need to do is make a variable for the array. So we'll do Sarah talk list. So the list will be the array, and then that's going to equal the array. And now inside the array, we're going to put all 3 variables. So we'll start with the first one, Sarah talk 1, and then comma, space, and then money sign, Sarah talk 2, comma, space, and then money sign, Sarah talk 3. All right, so we want to end that, close out that bracket, and then we want to do the semicolon since the array is all done now, and get ready to write the next line of code. So we have the 3 things that she can say, and all 3 things are inside of this array, and then the name of this array is Sarah talk list. Now what we want to do is make another variable that we're going to call voice. Now this is what she's actually going to say. Right, so that's going to equal Sarah talk list. Then we're going to do that bracket. We're going to do random. Then parentheses. And then we're going to do 0 since there's 3 things in this list. 0, it always starts with 0, so do 0, 1, 2. So when we do 0, make sure you do a space, and then do 2. Close out the parentheses, and close out the bracket. And make sure you do a semicolon. And then we're going to do the last thing. Now the last thing is going to set the property. So do set entity property. Then after we do set entity property, we got to, yeah, bracket. Do a bracket, and then it's going to be the Sarah model or the Sarah identity. So that's why this was important. So when we click on Sarah, that's why the entity ID is important. So we're setting the entity ID. So it's going to be Sarah. And then comma, and it's going to be the voice property, comma, and then we're going to set the money sign voice. Close out the brackets and hit semicolon. That's the end of the code. Now hopefully all this is correct. So if we hit apply and save, we see we get an error. Must begin with a dollar sign. Oh, gotta put a dollar sign there. Set entity property. Oh. All right, so I've got to add the parentheses on that. Okay, but there's still something wrong. Let's see. Oh, I don't need that. I didn't need to put a bracket there because we already closed the bracket right there. All right, so apply and save. And there's still something wrong. Okay, so I figured it out. I forgot to put entity. Because we need to know that we are setting the Sarah model entity. So that should work. Okay, there it goes. All right, so now that's all working. So we have our text that she can say. We have the array made. We have the random that's going to pick one of these random texts. And then we're setting this to her voice property. All right, so now the last thing we need to do is go into the dialog editor, make a new one, and we'll call this Sarah 2. Hit OK. And it's going to be NPC. So initiating NPC, which would be Sarah. Now we're right in the code that we need to use in order for her to pick the random text that we're going to use. All right, so that's going to be money sign. And then I'm not sure what this is called, but whatever that is. Entity. Bracket. Sarah model. Close the bracket. Dot property. And then another bracket. And it's going to be voice. Close the bracket. And close out this thing. And then that should be good. So hit save. And it's good. All right, so that should all be correct. What we will see when we run the game. And I just realized something that I didn't do. So we will quit. And go back to the map editor. Go back to Sarah. And we need to change her dialogue. So when player interacts, we're going to pick Sarah 2. Now we save it. And now we play it. All right, so new game. Okay. Oh, just add that from my other tutorial. Okay, so now if we click on Sarah, it says value. Value. All right, so let's figure out what we did wrong here. Okay, so I found out what I did wrong. I forgot to do one more thing. So we go back to the dialog editor, and what we need to do is load in a script. And then that script is going to be, so make sure you click on resource. That's going to be the new Sarah one that we created. So Sarah talks. And that's what I didn't do. So now we hit save. Now we hit quick play, and now it should work. Oh, so now the guy clicks on her. How are you enjoying RPG in a box? Click on her again. How are you enjoying RPG in a box? Have you seen Justin? How are you doing? So every time we click on her, she's going to say something different. And then it could be something, it could come up the same, but it all depends on how the random function works. But it should be all randomized. Now, just to recap, I just want to go over everything that we did, because I know I forgot to do something, so just so you don't get confused. So the first thing we did was we clicked on the Sarah character. We gave her an entity ID name, and then we created a property called voice. And then we saved it. And then we went to the script editor, and we created her 3 dialogues. We created the array. We made the variable that's going to be, that uses one of the 3 dialogues from the array. And then we set the property voice to whatever gets picked from the array. And then we came over to the dialogue editor and we added a script before she talks. That way this will run, pick the dialogue that she's going to say, and then she's going to say that dialogue. Okay, so that's how to make a randomly generated dialogue for RPG in a box. Hope this tutorial was helpful, and we'll see you on the next one.